that Stranger Things is wrapped up, there is a big question as to the fate of Eleven. So obviously Eleven is a beloved character, and her ending was left somewhat ambiguously. The Duffer Brothers basically provided, I think, enough evidence for you to kind of pick what you believe. But it is interesting because it really hinges on how you examine a few crucial pieces of evidence. So to lead with, it is the question of, did she escape and eventually make her way to Iceland, where she's going to live in peace, away from people, double waterfall, all that good stuff? Or did she truly sacrifice herself, and did she die when the bridge collapsed after they destroyed the exotic matter in the Upside Down? So that's kind of how it's left up. It's you can basically decide which one you believe, but the interesting thing is that both of them hinge on the lost sister Kali. So the reason that neither of them work without Kali is because when the team or the squad, the crew, whatever you want to call them, are coming back from the Upside Down, and they are driving into the military base, there were spike traps deployed, which blew their tires, and they were basically ambushed and captured by the military. Now, you can clearly see that Eleven is in the back of the box truck. She had been having a conversation with Mike in the back, and then this all happened. So she was in the back of the box truck. She was seen getting out of the back of the box truck, and then she literally just vanishes. Dr. K is like, what happened? She was just here. Where's the girl? The sergeant's confused. And the only explanation that we have for that, because there were the power blocking sonar dishes, I guess we'll call them. So it doesn't work without Kali. Now, what happened to Kali? Well, we thought she died, right? So Kali was shot by the other sergeant who had been plaguing them since like episode 2. The guy who I said, why on earth would you ever leave that guy alive? Yep, he came back. And when Murray destroys the helicopter, you can see that the sergeant fires the shot, and then he is moved by the concussive force of the explosion. So she definitely was shot. There's, I don't think, any question of that. And, you can see that she's injured. She's talking to Eleven, and she has like kind of their last quote unquote heart to heart. And this all happens when Hopper's not in the room, which is rather interesting. So Hopper's not there. You can see that she's wounded, she's hurt, and this is what Hopper comes back to after they have their moment alone as sisters. So it's clear that Hopper comes back, and he did not actually see Kali die. She had already passed on, supposedly, and so he was not there to see what happened. He wasn't there to hear whatever final words might have happened between the two sisters. So the theory is that is the illusion. So at this point, Eleven and Kali have a secret plan that nobody else knows about, and Hopper doesn't know about it because he had left the rooms in search of bandages. So something that is interesting, and it comes up through the father-daughter relationship between Hopper and Elle, is that she's a terrible liar. So, at different points in the story, she's had to keep secrets, do whatever, and a lot of that happened in this last one where they were keeping secrets from each other. And one of her classic liar's tells is that when she's lying or being dishonest, she has a big problem with maintaining eye contact. So here she is avoiding eye contact with Murray, not answering any of his questions, and just letting him come to the assumption that Kali had passed away.
Think up. You were gone for a minute there. Oh, what? No hug from the big man, huh? How about thank you for destroying the Huey, Murray? That was very brave. And what's wrong? Collie, where's Collie? Oh, God. Ellen. I'm so sorry.
So that's a little suspicious. Obviously it ends with her kind of looking over her shoulder. That's when she sees the floating boulders, and she uses that to go up into the abyss. Now, the question is, that gunshot wound, could Kali have survived? And I think the answer is yes. Obviously, she was mortally wounded. She was in the process of dying, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she died when we thought she did, right? There is a chance that she could have survived the gunshot wound long enough to be able to help hide Eleven when they were ambushed, when they came back from the Upside Down. So I would say yes, it is possible. Now, what about the C4, right? Because as we can tell, when Murray blew up the helicopter, it was kind of near the top floor, and in the room where they were holding Hopper and Kali, when the explosion happens and the helicopter is destroyed, all of the glass from the windows basically flies straight out. There's no indication that the helicopter was above and it's blowing down, or below blowing up. It is pretty lateral. It's pretty straight into the room. So you could, I think it's a safe assumption that she is either at the top floor or just like maybe the second floor from the top, just based on how the explosion affected them. Now, with the C4, where you can see here the location of the room that they were in, assuming this is the same corner of the building, like, because it's kind of a plus sign, is very, very close to where the detonation of the C4 was supposed to happen. Now, the C4 in question, I couldn't get a clear shot of the label, but if we were to assume that it is at least the same, not dimensions, but same overall weight of the military standard M112 C4 charge, then each of these bricks would be 1.25 pounds, and it appears that there are 4 by 2. They're stacked 4 by 2, which means that each bundle should have 8 bricks of C4. So here we can see that there are 24 bricks of C4, and then here we can see that there are an additional 16 bricks of C4. So that means that there is at least 50 pounds of C4 on the rooftop. And bear in mind that the standard C4 charge is 1.25 pounds. Now, that is enough to completely level an average sized house, like a wooden framed, maybe brick veneer, whatever, but 50 pounds is adequate to completely level, like, the standard house that your imagination comes up. So here pictured is, roughly the Wheeler house. It would completely flatten that. So here's a video that is showing a 5-pound C4 explosion. So imagine this times 10, and with explosions, there's different levels of magnitude. It's not strictly additive, right? But this should just give you a perspective on how much damage we're potentially talking about. So yeah, that is a lot of damage. But as we saw in the earlier photo, it appears as though no structural damage actually happens to the building. Like, it's still melted from when Nancy shot it with the shotgun in the previous episodes, but there's no added damage whatsoever. So I think we can only assume from this that the exotic matter actually absorbed the energy of the explosion, because I really just can't explain why that would do no damage whatsoever otherwise. Now, the Duffer Brothers might not be the most well-versed or well-researched on C4, because Murray apparently used a fragmentation grenade to detonate a brick of C4 that he threw at the helicopter, and that's not how that works. So that would be called a sympathetic detonation. That is more akin to the old days of like unstable dynamite or something, you know, where, oh, if you drop it, it might explode. That's not what C4 is, or Semtex, or any of these modern plastic explosives. They're actually very, very stable. They require, you know, electrical detonation, either from, you know, electrical detonators or blasting caps, like a lead azide detonator, or, yeah, like a blasting cap. So a fragmentation grenade would not have been able to detonate it. So maybe this is just the Duffer Brothers not understanding C4, or it is just that the exotic matter absorbed all of it, which, could she have survived? Yes. We just have to assume that she can use her powers at a distance. The only other times that we've seen her actually use her powers, even going back to like season 2, she's always been in close proximity to the people that she is using her you know, she's changing their perception, changing their senses, and there's nothing that we've seen that would indicate that she could do that over a vast distance. You know, I don't think we ever got an exact measurement of where the gate is in relation to the Hawkins lab, like in the Upside Down, but they, you know, it's a distance. It's at least a couple of miles, you know, obviously because they're driving to and from. So obviously it's not just something that they felt comfortable walking to, right, when they go into the Upside Down. Now, just because we haven't seen her do it doesn't mean that she can't do it. Obviously, Vecna got power-ups throughout Season 4, Season 5, and 11 got power-ups as well. They even say it when they are showing down with one another, and he says, "You've gotten stronger, so have I," right? So it's not like they're maxed out and they can't grow and they can't become, you know, either more adept or more efficient with their powers. So it is possible that at some point from season 2, or maybe from the beginning, she has been able to use her powers at a greater distance than we thought. That's totally possible, and it's really the only thing I think of that can explain, you know, Elle being able to evade the military once they were ambushed. So even if Kali could have done it, even if Kali could use her powers, 11 shouldn't have been able to, right? Because they had the radars kind of positioned all around the box truck when they ambushed the crew. So not necessarily, right? So the way that it's kind of formed is that there's the gate, and then there are, from what we can see, there are 2 stationary radar dishes, and then 2 that are on the back of Humvees. Now, we know that these are more directional than the ones that were on the helicopters, right? Because the helicopters were larger, they were able to cast like a wider beam, I guess, if you imagine it that way. From when Hopper and 11 were planning on going into the military base in the Upside Down, she was getting affected from a greater distance. You know, the helicopters were like 1,000 yards away or something, right? But all of these ones that we've seen on the Humvees and in those stationary kind of turrets almost, they actually seem to have a more focused beam that they can affect. So just because of the way that they were positioned, I don't think that they would have affected Elle once she was standing in the gate. So here's Hopper noticing and marking kind of where everything is, and it gives you a little bit of geography, and then I'll show the pictures. So that was kind of quick, but you can tell it's, you know, they're positioned kind of between the gate and the box truck, and they're pointing towards the box truck because that's where Elle was, and that's where they believe that she's going to be. So, you know, they are focused towards the gate, or the door of the box truck, and you can even see that even when she is ready to make a sacrifice, potentially, or she's already escaped, that's kind of up in the air, but she's standing in the gate, and even the soldier who's closest to her is not even pointing his turret at her. Now, maybe it can't reach, right? Maybe it can't turn that far, or maybe he's just like kind of dumbfounded because they're like, how the hell did she get over there? We don't know. But she's not showing any pain. She's not acting as though she's under the influence of that high pitch that affects them from using their powers. So for her to say she shouldn't be able to use her powers, I don't think that holds water, just based on the geography of how the scene plays out. So some of the debunking for the death ending is that the 11 that we see is the illusion, right? So the idea that Kali cast the illusion, 11 went into the Radio Shack, went into the tunnels, and then eventually she was able to, get out of the county, flee the country, get to Iceland, and that's the escape option, or the escape ending. So they say that that's what happened. So the way that people who believe in that theory, they say, no, the 11 that we see is an illusion. And some of the reasons that they mention are that she does not have Kali's blood on her hands. So as we know before, when Kali's turns her power off or something disrupts it, everything that she kind of has made you imagine disappears. So it's kind of like what Vecna did to Hopper when he tricked him into thinking that he had shot 11, right? So Hopper was panicking, broke the tank, got her out of the sensory deprivation chamber. And then as soon as he was released from, his senses being manipulated, the blood was gone, right? The blood that was on L's abdomen, on his hands, it was just gone. Because it was a trick, and as soon as it was over, it was revealed. Like, everything that was not real is gone. So they say she didn't have blood on her hands, so it couldn't be 11, because 11 had, tried to stop the bleeding, and she had blood on her hands. Well, it might be a continuity error, but here is Elle as she's facing off, like, the final moments with Vecna. So this is right after Will is revealed to be in Vecna's mind, and then whatever. So this is like the end of the fight, and her hands are totally clean. And this happens much earlier. This happens basically right after Elle gets to the rooftop, does a heart-to-heart with Hopper, and then boom, she's there and helps save the crew from the giant kaiju that doesn't make any sense, and from Vecna. So just because she doesn't have blood on her hands, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's because she is an illusion. Now, the other thing that they'll say is that, well, why didn't 11's nose bleed when she pulled Mike into the void, right? We've seen her do it 1,000 times. Every time she uses her powers, she does, she touches her nose, because it's bleeding, right? And the final goodbye between Mike and 11 happens in that void, like in the nothing. And she's not bleeding from the nose. Well, here is a clip from the first episode when she's doing the obstacle course. So as we can see from that, she's been training. She has been working really hard. She's been honing her skills. And as we discussed earlier, they can grow, right? Henry grew more powerful. Kali potentially grew more powerful. And 11 certainly grew more powerful as well. So, just in that sequence there, she blows apart a log that looks to be about like 5 to 6 inches thick, which is, that's tough. She does a super jump, and then a roll, and there's no nosebleed. Then she blows up 2 pumpkins, she does the ladder thing, and then she super jumps over the bus, and there's no nosebleed. So she has been honing her powers quite a bit, and even if you go, well, that's not a 1-to-1 because that's not her using her mental like telepathy, bringing somebody into like her inner peace place, right? Well, even just earlier in that episode, here's the sequence where Max gets taken into the void by 11 and Kali, and as you can see, she does not have any blood on her nose. And then even earlier, when I think it was in episode 7, when she flips the truck back up, and then she has the first time that she touches minds with Kali, she also is not bleeding from the nose. Now there's a little bit of blood there, but that was from when she flipped the box truck from its side back up onto its wheels. So that's why there's a little bit of blood. You can tell that she's already wiped it away and it's dried. So the last thing that I've seen people mentioning is, well, if it was 11 and she was standing there, well, why wasn't she sucked into the gate, right? Because the wormhole was collapsing, the bridge was collapsing, so she should have been sucked through the gate, because there's buildings getting torn apart behind her, there's steel and bricks and cinder blocks and all of that. And I actually think that there is a really, really good answer for that. It's because she was not standing inside of the Upside Down. She is standing like right on the dividing line between the right side up and the Upside Down. So she is not being affected by it, because as we've seen, particularly in season 4, when they're in the trailer and the gate is on the ceiling of the trailer, and they have to throw the bed sheets as a rope in between, the gravity or the effects of the Upside Down and having different gravity, it doesn't happen until they cross the center point. There's a crossover point, right? And until that happens, the person or object in question is only being affected by whatever side they're starting from, right? So until you cross the middle point, if you're in the Upside Down, you're only affected by the Upside Down's gravity and physics until you cross over, right? And with something long like the bed sheets that they used as a rope to climb in between, it is, it can kind of be funky. It's kind of neat, like from a physics perspective. So it's almost, I believe, as if you look at how she's standing and what she's, how she's positioned, you almost imagine an invisible membrane behind her. And until that membrane is broken or passed through, it's holding the physics of the two worlds apart from each other. So as soon as she hits that midway point, that is when she is sucked away. So we don't actually see, and you'll see this in the clip, we don't actually see what changes, but I believe that when we are getting a close-up on her face, she takes a step back, thus passing through the membrane of the worlds, and that allows the physics of the wormhole collapsing to affect the right side up. So I think she steps back, she vanishes, and then that's why it's only after she passes through that anybody on the right side up is affected by the pull of the collapsing wormhole, because up until that point nobody is affected at all. But then they're all almost knocked off of their feet right after she basically breaks the membrane that is dividing the physics of the Upside Down from the physics of the right side up. So, during the opening of the gate and just the collapse of the wormhole, you can see that physics are acting on the tentacles of the gate, but I don't think that necessarily debunks my theory of the membrane separating the two worlds. After all, the gates are literally the transitionary tunnel right between the two worlds. So, but it's stemming from the vines of the upside down. So in my mind, they are not necessarily fully in the right side up. They are connected through, you know, the just the holes and the tears that they make, that they are of the upside down, and therefore when you see a little bit of rippling around her and the tentacles that appear to be in the foreground of her, like even just by a couple of feet, that's why they move. So, you know, that's just my observation. Obviously the Duffer Brothers might, you know, they might come out and say everybody's wrong, this is actually what happened. We don't know yet. So I personally believe that 11 sacrificed herself. I think that there is stronger evidence to support that, but I don't think that you can't just completely debunk one side or the other, right? So what do you guys think? Did you like the finale? Did you feel like, at least for, you know, this video, did you feel like 11, did it make sense to you? I know a lot of people are upset because, you know, I mean, she's been a victim her entire life, and you know, she had that whole thing from Hopper talking about how life has been so unfair to her, and the ending that I don't want to believe, but I do believe is the true ending, is that life continued to be unfair to her until she sacrificed herself, and that was it. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, please. Any feedback, it's always appreciated. I'm trying to get better on the mic. I am still kind of dealing with some upper respiratory issues, but yeah, I hope you guys drop a like, and if you guys have suggestions or requests for anything else you'd like to see me kind of deep dive into, whether that's Stranger Things or like literally anything else, yeah, drop a comment, and I appreciate it if you guys made it this far into the video, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye.